New York City is full, literally.
It's inevitable the ground's going down, the water's coming up. At some point, those two levels will.
New York is full, and they have decided to do something crazy about this. What if I told you that New York City wants to build an entire new neighborhood in the middle of the ocean? No, I'm not joking. This is a real $40 billion plan that could change Manhattan forever. We're talking about adding 1,760 acres of new land. Stick around, because this story gets absolutely wild. First, let me tell you how this plan came to be. Here's something that'll blow your mind. Manhattan Island isn't actually the same size it was 400 years ago. The island has been slowly growing, like literally expanding into the water. And New Yorkers have been doing this for centuries. You know Battery Park City? That beautiful waterfront neighborhood in Lower Manhattan? Yeah, that entire area didn't exist 50 years ago. It was just water. They built it on landfill and construction debris. In fact, large chunks of modern Manhattan are built on reclaimed land. The coastline you see today, it's actually not natural. It's man-made. Lower Manhattan, the financial district, parts of the Upper West Side, they all expanded through land reclamation over the past 200 years. So when city planners say they want to extend Manhattan into the sea, they're not crazy. They're just following a very old New York tradition. But this time, they want to go much bigger. And before we talk about the current plan, you need to know, this idea is actually over 100 years old. You see, back in 1911, a guy named Kennard Thompson had this wild vision. He wanted to extend Manhattan Island southward into New York Harbor. His plan was to create new neighborhoods on reclaimed land. Sound familiar? Fast forward to 2011. Columbia University professor Vishaan Chakrabarty proposed something similar. He called it New Manhattan. His idea was to build an entirely new district on artificial land south of the existing island. But neither of these plans ever happened, until recently. In 2024, the dream got a new name, New Manhattan, and the odds of the plan taking place grew bigger than ever before. So here's the big idea. Extend Manhattan Island 2.5 miles south into New York Harbor. That's a massive expansion. The plan calls for 1,760 acres of brand new land. To put that in perspective, that would increase Manhattan's total land area by 12%. That's huge. But here's where it gets really interesting. New Manhattan would be elevated 13 to 15 feet above sea level, and it would be completely surrounded by wetlands and marshlands. Why, you may ask? The reason behind this is simple: to absorb storm surges and protect against rising sea levels. Remember Hurricane Sandy in 2012? The storm that caused $19 billion in damage to New York. Lower Manhattan was absolutely destroyed by flooding, so New Manhattan is designed to prevent that from ever happening again. The plan includes 178,000 housing units. That's enough space for 247,000 people. That's like adding the entire population of Orlando, Florida to Manhattan. Now, you might be thinking, okay, this sounds cool, but why? Why go through all this trouble? Great question. Let's talk about why New York is seriously considering this.
Rights advocates say they are tired of attempts to kick New Yorkers out of their homes, all to raise rents or make room for huge development.
New York City has a big housing problem. And I mean big. There aren't enough apartments. And the rent? The numbers are quite high. People are getting priced out of neighborhoods left and right. So what do? You create new land. It's actually genius when you think about it. Instead of destroying historic neighborhoods to build more apartments, or forcing people to move to the outer boroughs, you just make more Manhattan. Problem solved. But the housing crisis is only part of the story. The real reason this might happen has to do with money. Let's talk numbers. New Manhattan wouldn't just provide housing, it would also be an absolute goldmine for real estate developers. Think about it. Brand new Manhattan waterfront property with views of the Statue of Liberty. People would pay anything for that, and the city knows it. Experts estimate that New Manhattan would generate $270 billion in land value alone. That's an insane amount of money, and that's just the land value. That doesn't include the buildings, businesses, restaurants, shops, and everything else that would be built there. Plus, the new neighborhood would increase Manhattan's housing capacity by 15%. 15% more apartments in one of the most expensive real estate markets on Earth? The economic impact would be huge, in a positive way. We're talking about an economic boom that could last for decades. And in a city that's always looking for ways to generate revenue without raising taxes, that's pretty appealing. New Manhattan could essentially pay for itself over time through property taxes, sales taxes, and increased economic activity. But wait, there's more. Because New Manhattan isn't just about money and housing, it's also about survival. Climate change is real, sea levels are rising, and New York City is in serious danger. Lower Manhattan is especially vulnerable to flooding.
Water is splashing over the seawalls at the tip of Lower Manhattan.
During Hurricane Sandy, water surged into subway tunnels, flooded streets, and caused billions of dollars in damage. And scientists say storms like that will only get worse and more frequent. So what's the solution? Build a shield. That's essentially what New Manhattan would be. An elevated, wetland-protected barrier that absorbs storm surges before they reach the rest of Manhattan. The wetlands and marshlands would act like a giant sponge, soaking up excess water during major storms. This could potentially save billions, maybe even tens of billions in future flood damage. Think of it like this. You could either spend $40 billion now to build New Manhattan, or spend hundreds of billions over the next 50 years repairing flood damage over and over again. When you look at it that way, it starts to make a lot of sense. And it's not just about protecting buildings, it's about protecting people's lives. Hurricane Sandy killed 44 people in New York City. Thousands more lost their homes. Entire communities were devastated. New Manhattan could be the difference between a manageable disaster and a complete catastrophe. The elevated design means that even if water levels rise significantly, the new neighborhood would stay dry. So far, this all sounds amazing, right? New land, more housing, climate protection, incredible views. But what could possibly go wrong? Well, a lot, actually. But before we get into that, hit that subscribe button to know about mega projects around the world. Building New Manhattan would cost tens of billions of dollars. Nobody knows the exact price tag yet, but estimates range from $40 billion to way more. And where does that money come from? Probably taxpayers. Unless the city partners with private developers, which brings its own problems. Because if developers foot the bill, you can bet they'll want to make their money back, which means expensive luxury apartments that most New Yorkers can't afford. You'd end up with a situation where the very people who need housing the most, that is the middle class and working class New Yorkers, get priced out of the new neighborhood entirely. It would be like Hudson Yards all over again. And that defeats the whole purpose. And even if they get the funding, there's another problem: time. This project would take decades to complete. We're talking 20, 30, maybe even 40 years. Not to be a bummer, but most people hearing this won't live to see it finished. So yeah, it's a long-term investment. That's a really hard sell to taxpayers who want to see results in their lifetime. New York has a history of ambitious projects that never got finished or got abandoned halfway through. What if New Manhattan becomes one of those? Then there's the historical and cultural issue. New Manhattan would completely transform the geography of New York City. That iconic shape of Manhattan Island? Gone. The historical coastline? Erased. Some people think that's a problem. New York has a rich history, and completely changing the physical layout of the city feels wrong to them.
New York has the worst congestion of any major city in the U.S.
First, there's the traffic problem. New York City already has some of the worst traffic in the entire country. Now imagine adding 247,000 more people to Manhattan. Even with subway extensions, that's a lot of extra cars, buses, bicycles, and pedestrians. The city's infrastructure is already stretched thin. Adding an entire new neighborhood would make things even worse. Not exactly a selling point, and it's not just about roads. The subway system is already overcrowded during peak hours. So with all these problems, is New Manhattan actually going to happen? Here's where things stand right now. As of now, New Manhattan is just a concept. It has not been approved, construction hasn't started, and there's no official timeline. It's basically still in the brainstorming phase. But, and this is important, a smaller version of the plan is already moving forward. It's called the Financial District and Seaport Climate Resilience Master Plan. This plan involves new elevated developments and some artificial land along Lower Manhattan. It's not as ambitious as New Manhattan, but it's the same basic idea: expand the island and protect against flooding. And this smaller project is actually happening. The city expects it to be completed in 15 to 20 years at a cost of $5 to $7 billion. Think of this smaller project as a test run. If it works well, if people like it, if it successfully protects against flooding, then maybe, just maybe, the city will get more serious about the full New Manhattan vision. But if it's a disaster, then New Manhattan is probably dead in the water. No pun intended. What do you think? Should New York build New Manhattan? Or is this plan too crazy to actually work? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.